This episode is sponsored by Kerkering Barberio, your trusted partner in tax, audit, and outsourced accounting services. Serving Sarasota, Manatee, and the greater Tampa Bay area for over 50 years, KB helps clients achieve their personal and business goals. Visit kbgrp.com to learn more. Hello and welcome to the Business Observer from the Corner Office podcast. I'm Mark Gordon, managing editor of the Business Observer. Today's guest is John Joyce, co-owner of CRS Technology Consultants in Fort Myers. John, welcome and thanks for being here.
Oh, pleasure. Been looking forward to it all week.
Excellent. Great. Me as well. All right. So we're going to get into leadership and we're going to talk about a little bit about that. And we're going to talk about your career. Before we dive too far into that, tell us about CRS Technology Consultants. What do you guys do? What's your niche in the marketplace?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll start with what we're technically known as. So our segment, we're an MSP. So those who have never heard those letters put together before, it's managed services provider. I will tell all that will listen, we are called that because of a bunch of IT people got tired of being called IT people or computer guy. So
right.
We're one of the few industries that for some reason named ourselves 10 years ago plus, and here we are, we're MSPs. I grew up as computer guy and woke up one day as MSP. So sure, we'll go with that. But that's our industry segment. Yeah. So we fall into that bucket, but how we view ourselves, we're a customer service company that happens to do IT. That's really where we view ourselves. We serve our partners externally and internally. The ways we serve just happen to be in, information security, data systems, how do you run your business as efficiently as possible, leveraging technology? And we put consultants in the name. That's what we view ourselves as. We're your consultant. We just happen to specialize in the blinking green lights of the world.
Yeah. So you say that right. It's, you guys have that name, right? It's instead of the IT guy or the computer guy. And we're still that way in the Gordon household. My wife and I have one son who's, I'm sure you've heard stories like this, right? He's 16. My wife and I are both 50. And he's our IT guy, when something weird happens with YouTube TV or some other thing that just is a tiny bit above what I can do. It's, hey, Aaron, we need your help, buddy, over here.
And I promise I already turned it off and on again. But
yes, I did that. I unplugged it not unplugged it. I checked to see if it was plugged in. Yes, I did all those stuff. Well, tell me a little bit about that business. I want to hear about how you guys have evolved. And I ask it because we had this conversation at work a couple of days ago at the Observer Media Group, how our IT department, our internal department has evolved, where now there's a couple of people. And I've been at the Observer Media Group almost 20 years. And I remember where it was one of our writers was also, because he knew Apples and we use Macs. And he was kind of like an Apple guy. And people would come up holding their computer saying, Sean, I can't print, and it was so ad hoc. And I think other companies, we're a small business, bigger now than we were 15 years ago, but still a small company. How has your company evolved in that landscape of helping, as you said, consulting with your clients and partners?
Evolved is the right way to look at it, because we've of course evolved as a business, but the business has also evolved around us. So much has changed just even the time that I've been doing it. CRS is a company. It's funny. The company is as old as I am, almost to the day. So, I became an owner in recent years, but, the legacy predates me much, much longer than that. So when I think about the history of the company and that legacy, it's truly, the company has seen it all, from the family that started it 37 years ago, literally doing white box computers out of an office in Cape Coral. And then it evolved from that into, full IT services. And then when managed services, all jokes aside, became a thing, the company evolved into that. I had started a much smaller IT group, right out of college in 2007, 2008. If anyone remembers the economics around that time, it was not a great time to be looking for a job. So I was facing graduation a couple years and got with a buddy of mine and said, hey, I think the only people that will hire us is us. So what if we gave that a shot? And, It worked. I mean,
Yeah.
here we are. I guess it worked, but we kind of grew that a little bit, merged it with CRS because we met the then ownership and decided, hey, we work a lot better with each other than against each other. So we joined forces, as it were, in 2015. So coming up on 10 years ago. So I got to see CRS very much. It was peaking at that evolution into managed services. It was
Yeah.
already considered a managed services provider, but we were kind of still in that inflection point from what does IT actually mean, and because it means something different to almost everyone.
Good point.
And
True.
really narrowing the focus and the intentionality of what do we want to be as a company? What's that identity? IT. Do we run cables? Do we make websites? What do we do for people? So lasering in that focus was a big part of what I came in to do and guide over those years. And then really, galvanizing who we wanted to be, not just in this space, but in the broader community of Southwest Florida.
Yeah. And so speaking about sort of the operation side of the company, you guys
Hmm.
did something that I think is really interesting. I want you to talk a little bit about it.
Yeah.
You guys made a conscious decision at some point to sort of downsize the scope and the total customers, as I understand it, that you guys had. Where was the company at in that time frame, and why did you guys decide to do that?
Yeah. That going back to kind of things that I walked into right 10 years
Yeah,
ago, and I do think there were a lot of reasons, again primarily just culture fit, as to why my team integrated into the existing CRS team the way it did, and how I ended up kind of where I am with the company today. But that all started with we were the scrappy startup, right? Even then the company had been around for decades and it was reinventing itself in a lot of ways, but still, like, you have that inertia of something that's just been around for a long time. We were new, we knew how to do something with almost nothing, and that was what was needed to say, hey, we at the time, again, we're talking that 2014, 2015 time period, the company served quote unquote 1,000 to 2,000, giant air quotes here, clients. You know what I mean? Because
sure.
that could range from small, medium, and even large businesses, all the way down to people that just are at home and need their printers to work, and everything in between. They were clients. Part of that big shift that I was so proud to be a part of was, how do we transition from 1,000 or thousands of clients to a curated list of partners? Because partnership, we identified, was really what we wanted to be about.
Mm,
We be an extension of their team, so that we're not just a service provider to them. We are plugged into their businesses. We meet with them. We discuss their challenges, both technological and not, and then see, are there ways to leverage technology to solve some of those challenges? And the what we discovered was, you can't do that. It's a relationship business. You
yeah,
can't do that for 1,000, 2,000 clients effectively. At least if someone's figured it out, I haven't seen it yet.
yeah,
But what we could do is walk it back to what we kind of settled on this number of 150. Like, we believe that we can serve 150 partner companies to the
hmm,
fullest of our ability. We're humans. I
right,
both work alongside and employ, in my opinion, slanted as it is, the most incredible collection of humans in the world. They're still humans. We make mistakes. We're not perfect. We drop the ball. But still, when we're plugged into organizations at that level, that partnership kind of supersedes all of those things. And
yeah,
again, we work together as humans together. And that was much more attainable on a day in, day out basis, serving 150 partners, not 1,000, 2,000 quote unquote clients. And that transition took place over several years. We didn't just walk in one day and say, hey, 900 people, get out.
right,
But it was, parting ways with, not all business is good business. And
sure,
it didn't make them bad people. I, in fact, liked a whole lot of them.
right,
But, famously, we'd tell some of them, if I can write you a check and not show up each month, that's not a good place for me to be as a
yeah,
business.
yeah,
So that's whittling it down to what were the right fits culturally, what were the right fits, of course, business case wise, which were profitable, all
yeah.
those things. Those serve the bigger narrative of the best version of CRS.
Yeah, it's interesting too, right? Because what you're saying is what companies sometimes face in terms of supply that they have. And, you
Yep.
hear these stories about startups that get this viral moment, and then all of a sudden everybody wants to buy their chocolate bar or their widget or whatever they're making. And they're like,
Yep.
wait, we can't make, and it sounds like you guys said, we can't make 600 of these every minute. And you guys were
No.
spread at that level, it sounds like, where,
Yeah.
as you said, you weren't doing the right things for the right customers.
No, and we were still doing good work, but I could see we were on a course to vanilla mediocrity.
Yeah.
Could we have just copy pasted, and done the same thing and been right 51% of the time? Yes.
Sure.
But I wanted to be right a lot more. Again, we were never going to hit 100, but I
Yeah.
want to do a lot better than 51%.
Yeah.
And that required focus and intentionality and saying, again, back to our identity. Again, even at that point, decades into this, and because I'm big on legacy, right? I am part of, it's not been a family business, but we still call it the fourth generation of ownership. There's been four rounds of owners of this business through the years. I want there to be a lot more than that moving forward.
Yeah.
And so we have to establish that identity and give it the wiggle room to evolve as the world evolves around us, but still be who we are. What are our, we have 4 core values. How do we espouse those every single day in what we do?
Yeah. And so what's the scope of the company today in terms of how many employees do you guys have?
Yep. So we have 21 team members, and myself included. So again, it's all about not growing out a business or anything like that. We've grown in recent years. We got down into the mid-teens at one point. Again, really trying to find that middle ground. Because there's still that evolve or die. You can't just keep we could serve one partner really well too. We wouldn't make very much money either. So it's finding. So we've re-entered a controlled growth phase, but it's again very intentional growth. So 21 team members. We serve, I believe, last count right about 156 partners. So again, go figure, that 150 number was pretty gosh darn close.
Yeah.
And we play with those limits all the time. Before we even look at the market, because we don't have, of those 21 people, we don't employ a single salesperson. We have phenomenal marketing consultants.
Really?
We have great out, we have a sales motion that is part of our business. Cause again, we are a business, but we don't do that through active sales. So when we consider, we're almost entirely organic growth, but when that growth even comes to us organically, we still hold it up to a light and say, hey, is this the right opportunity? Is this the right time? We've told people we desperately want to work with you, but now's not the right time. We would not serve you properly. And guess what? In the 2 instances I'm especially thinking of where we had to do that, we came back, 6 months, the better part of a year later, and said, hey, if you're still open to it, now we are in a place, we have the resources, because we feel we have to put the resource on the right side of that conversation. We need to have the capacity to serve before we take on the business. So we're not chasing that dragon forever. And in both cases, they're fantastic partners today.
Yeah. Yeah, it's counterintuitive lessons, right? It's something that you don't necessarily think of as at top of your mind right thing to do, but it certainly worked out for you guys. Okay, so you're at that 20 employee range, and so you got to have leaders. And you talked about legacy, and you want to obviously be able to. You're only 37, so you're not retiring next week, but you want to be able to hand it down. Talk to me about leadership. What do you look for within CRS? What stands out to you as up and coming and good leaders for your organization?
It starts with a mirror, right? Like first I got to be able to look at myself and say, who do I want to be in this role? Again, having done this literally my entire life, I've filled every role in an organization like this one can imagine. I fixed the printers, I've installed the servers, I've listened to the upset client or partner because we made the mistake, right? Typically they're not mad for no reason. We typically did some. So I've been through all of that. So it starts with that mirror, right? What do I want to be in those moments? And then if the answer is right and good, then how can I identify people who share those core values within the organization? Because again, I'm not the only kind of leader. I'm not even a great leader every day. I fall down like everyone else, but whatever that leadership looks like, there needs to be continuity in who's going to fill those roles moving forward. So here a lot of it starts and ends with service. Service leadership is very, very important to us. I tell my team all the time, my primary role is to serve each of you. All those 150 something partners out there, those are obviously, that's where the money comes from. That's how we run a business. It's why we're all here. But I am here to enable all of you because they're the ones that are doing that hard work every day. So if I'm removing a roadblock, if I'm giving them the resources and the tools they need, I'm doing my job. And all of that really boils down to, am I serving them so that they can serve the people that we serve? So that's obviously that tentacles itself out in all sorts of different directions. I keep talking about our 4 core values, passion, collaboration, respect, and innovation. All of those plug into that leadership profile. But I think kind of sitting atop all of that or really under it as a foundation is, are we doing this in a capacity to serve? And, I'm again very blessed to have a fantastic, core group of leaders within those, 20 couple people. And I'm, in my opinion, again, as slanted as it is, I would say the future is very bright because I do plan. I hope, plenty of years ahead of me. That said, the world happens around us. And
Yeah.
if I suddenly wasn't part of that equation for any reason, I feel very strongly that the company's in a good place, and it should be, because
Yeah.
who we serve, it should be bigger than any one person, myself included.
Sure. So passion, collaboration, respect,
And
innovation. Those are your
innovation.
4 core values.
That's us.
Excellent. Very cool. Okay, so and that leadership you just talked about, where did you sort of get that? Is that on the job training, or did you have, and what leaders stand out to you that you've learned from, and what have you learned from some of your leadership mentors?
So we'll start with me because it's the easiest part. A lot of mistakes. And if there's, I'm not saying the list is long, but if there's anything I do right, it's because, man, did I do it wrong a lot of
Yeah.
times before that. And the things I managed to get right sooner than not are because I did have, fantastic people to point me down the right path. One of those mentors thankfully sits right next to me pretty much every day, is my business partner, Julie Klein. She's been with the company even longer than myself, and she is such a wealth of experience and knowledge that I just couldn't hope to amass in any amount of time, because she's basically seen and done it all. And
Yeah.
but more important than just the business experience, she comes from a much more operations background. I'm, of course, I'm the geek in the room. I come from the techie side of things. I've learned a lot, but at the end of the day, again, going back to making those lights blink green, that's what I'm really good at. Anything else has come either through her or through others in my circle, as it were. But it far more important than just the business or the operations things I've learned. It's the moral compass. It really is. Again, are we doing things for the right reasons?
Yeah.
Does it align with those 4 core values? If we start there, so many times if we're unsure about something, we can answer it really quickly by just holding up to those first few litmus tests. If it passes that, then we can do something here. If it doesn't, then we're already done and we're wasting our time, their time, and it's just not the right fit. But outside of, obviously, again, so I'm extremely blessed to have someone inside the organization that I can look to for as she'd roll her eyes at me, but as I often refer to as my adult supervision, because again, boy, howdy do I need it on many days.
We all need that in life, for sure.
We all need it.
Yes.
But outside the organization, again, the list is sadly too long for this format to cover. I've had a string of people in my life that each one have been there in exactly the right time and exactly the right moment. Not always when I was looking for them, and quite the opposite in many cases, but they were still there to nudge me down a path that, still fall down, still make mistakes, but to pick you up and say, hey, see that dumb thing you just did? Here's the way to not do that next time.
Here's the solution to that.
It's ranged from sports coaches to phenomenal teachers to family members, friends, the whole nine. And it's just, those are the things that, again, you can't buy, you can't outsource. You just have to be really happy when they find their way into your life. And again, the broader people I get to work with and alongside, and even outside the company, we're very big on, I'm a big believer in the MSP community and the broader IT community. Technology touches every corner of our lives today.
Sure.
And the more we stop looking at it as my competition, my rival, my this, my that, and it's like, there's more than enough business out there for all of us. We all just frankly need to wake up every day and say, how can we be better? Yeah. So we're big believers in participating in that community too. So I get phenomenal opportunities to, coexist and interact with people outside of the 4 walls, as it were, but we're all dealing with similar struggles. We all have similar wants and needs to take the industry further, and holding ourselves up to that light and that iron sharpens iron kind of moment. Those are the opportunities I look for and take every one I can get.
Yeah, for sure. Excellent. You talked about some of the mistakes you've made. Is there one that stands out in your mind that you learned the most from? And I shouldn't even say necessarily a mistake, but a setback, a mulligan. What stands out in your career that you learned a lot from that didn't go the way you wanted it to?
Yeah. In this business, you end up with a lot of inflection points. There's just a lot of chances to, and I'll use an overly technical example, but there's many that are far squishier. Do I reboot the server or not? Do I unplug it and plug it back in or not? Do I just press go?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, again, it's littered with examples of, I could have went left, I could have went right. If I had the chance to go back and hit the other, of course I would have done it the other way.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, like, all those were also formative experiences, and I'm still here. So they didn't kill me or anyone else, thank God. Because there are people that make actual big decisions every day. And I thankfully don't have to make many of those. But genuinely, honestly, if I had to go back and say, hey, if there's that one, it's actually not technical at all. There have just been key moments throughout where, hindsight being 2020,
Sure.
I would say being this is going to sound funny, but being overly conservative at times and saying, there are just moments where I would have pushed harder and said, hey, if we just took that one chance, and, again, it's all worked out. So it's always been fine, but I'm a big opportunity person, and I've challenged myself to just be better at saying, what, this is going to, the muscles might hurt after, or again, there's going to be bumps and bruises afterwards, but having done the thing is worth those risks as long as we're managing the risks properly. So there's just those kinds of things where it's like, hey, what if we added that team member a little bit earlier? Or what if we, what if we onboarded that tool that was pretty expensive, but look what it's done for our partners every minute since we did it. Those are the ones that I look back and say, yeah, again, we did things for either fiscally or other like highly conservative, like good reasons, but if it's doing such a great thing now, what if we had done it 6 months before, a year before? So there's moments like that. The biggest ones would be team focus, where, again, I work with such an incredible collection of humans, and they have followed me down some paths where we've all come out the other end more than okay, but where they've stepped up to do things where if I could have planned a little bit better, if I said, would have just bit the bullet and said, hey, we're going to push go on the next 2 hires, not just one. Again, they got the job done and then some, but what they had to put on the line to get the job done was a higher cost than it had to be. That's a common recurrence on our podcast and in the shows. What's the cost of? And measuring the cost of something far outweighs the monetary cost in a lot of cases.
Well, you just hit on something, a segue. We're going to do some rapid fire questions in a minute, but before we get to that, you mentioned the podcast, and as we are recording this in late October, you are hitting a milestone on your podcast. Tell us about your podcast, what it is, and what that milestone is.
Oh, thank you. So I have, again, the list goes on. I every week, just about. Life gets in the way occasionally. I look forward to getting to sit down with 2 of my dearest coworkers and friends and record the Solid State podcast. Today, literally this morning, we recorded and posted episode 100 of that show. And the history is real simple. We sit around all day and talk about this stuff. And one day, someone, me, was silly enough to say, what if we recorded some of it? I wonder if anyone would listen. And the answer is not very many. No, people do. But we don't do it for that. We do it because we are going back to, it's one of those core values. We are so passionate about this job that we get to do. Some really good advice I got a long time ago is, when picking a job, if you can figure out a way to do the thing you do for free and get someone to pay you for it, you're going to be okay. Yes. And this is very much that thing for me and for my 2 co-presenters as well. And we literally get together on a weekly basis and we talk about what's going on. Again, that broader technology community, right? What's going on in that community? Sometimes there's a new smartphone out there and everyone wants to play with it. Other times it's, how do we protect businesses from business ending events from a technological perspective? Again, that's a big spectrum, right? We get to talk about fun toys. Sometimes we literally talk about a video game for an hour because, again, that's what we're passionate about. But filtered throughout are these moments that are, a lot of it's business facing because this is our job. It is our business, and we take very seriously. But there's things in there that we hope can get to enough people to get them to slow down and say, am I protecting my business's data as best as I can? Am I prepared for the next hurricane so that my business not only survives physically, but functionally? All of those things do have tendrils back to what phone do you buy? What laptop do you use? What service does your email run through? All those things. But we do it really for the love of this business that we do, which is just the tech of it all. I mean, that's really... Again, I would sit down and talk to those 2 people about everything we talk about, whether we were hitting the record button or not. We just are crazy enough to hit the record button and let other people listen in on the conversation for 100 episodes now.
Love it. Well,
we're looking forward to the next ones.
Solid State podcast. I love it. Okay, John, we are going to do some rapid fire questions, but they're going to be, they are going to be tech related. Okay, because we're just talking about your passion for technology, and I want to know this, and I think our audience will as well. Okay, first question: what kind of phone do you have?
Which one?
You have multiple phones.
I do.
What phones do you have?
My my daily driver, as I lovingly refer to it, is my iPhone 16 Pro Max. I am that IT person that's also an Apple guy, so that goes with me everywhere. But I also at any given time have a cycle rotation of Android device. Like right now on the desk in front of me is my iPhone, as well as Google's Pixel 9 Pro Fold. That's a mouthful and a half, Google. Reminder. And Samsung's Galaxy Flip. Playing with some foldable stuff right now for a project that we're working on. So
that's interesting. You're into that, the different sides of it. What's a gear, an equipment, a technology, a thing, an item that's on your wish list? Do you want these glasses where you could, I don't know, talk to people? Like, seen commercials on that. Like, what's the tech thing you don't have that you want the most?
Oh man, I mean, does Star Trek count? I mean, if we're because give me a holodeck any day.
Yes.
No, then it would be that. As far as like stuff that's out there on the market today, a huge area of interest to me is what's going on in virtual reality, augmented reality. Obviously, Apple's got their direction with the Vision Pro. Meta's got their very different direction with their collaboration with Ray-Ban right now. And somewhere in the middle, I think, is the product that they all want to make. And they're all stuck against the physics of, we all know we want to make, but we can't make it, and certainly not at a price that anyone can afford. So the answer to your question, unfortunately, is not very rapid fiery. If you've gotten to know me at all, you'll know that was always going to be the case. It just doesn't exist yet, and we all desperately want it to. Zuckerberg himself, Orion exists for them. It cost them $10,000, a bunch of lab-grown crystals to make that pair of glasses, and it's still not what they want to make. So that's what's out there in the hopefully not too distant future. I think the problems we have to solve there aren't even technical ones. It's, what do we want to do with a world where people have cameras pointed at each other all the time, not just in our pockets? And that's a broader question that we definitely don't have the format for today.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm the person that to ask these questions, I'd answer them, because I'm the person that when I don't know when this was, 20 years ago, iPhone is what, 2005 maybe?
Yep. It's about 506.
Okay, so like 19 years old, whatever. And I'm the person who said, when you can start taking pictures on your iPhone, it's like, nobody's going to want to do that. If you want to take pictures, get a camera, right? Nobody's going to want to take pictures off their phone. That's the stupidest idea I ever heard. So I'm the opposite of that. So
and the funny part is, there's more people out there buying bespoke cameras right now than there have been for over a decade. So technology is beautifully cyclical if you watch those patterns just right.
Yes. All right, last rapid fire question, but it might turn into an answer too. You can't see it now, but I saw in your office that you're in, you have a lot of Star Wars memorabilia. So my 16-year-old son and I debate this often. What's the best? And I'm not talking about the side movies like Solo. What's the best Star Wars movie out of the 9? What is
out of the 9?
I'm talking about the 9 core movies. Not like Rogue One's a great movie, but that doesn't count for this debate. What's the best Star Wars movie?
Yep. So of the 9, it would be Empire. Empire Strikes Back.
Interesting. You're an Empire.
I am an Empire guy. I do think we have. See what happens with rapid fire questions. We have to find our lowest points to figure out where we're going to go, and that's really what that movie's all about, right? Yeah. We have to hit the floor to be able to stand back up, and I think that's such a beautiful part of that story. It's very important to me.
Yes,
and that's why that one stands head and shoulders actually above the rest, and really is only touched by if anyone watches the kind of the streaming properties, which have not done so well for a lot of good reasons. Andor is right up there with it. Andor is the show production of Andor is the closest thing they've come to capturing what Empire meant to me, seeing it the first time.
Interesting. I've not seen Andor yet, but I like Empire. That's an interesting answer. I'm a New Hope guy. I'm still old school. That's still number
it's right
one
there.
for me. It's always going to be right number one. Excellent. All right. Well, that'll be another podcast. Star Wars episode. John Joyce, CRS Technology Consultants. Thank you so much for joining us on the From the Corner Office podcast.
Loved it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Business Observer From the Corner Office podcast. I'm your host, Mark Gordy. This podcast was produced by Reed Corley of the Corley Company in Sarasota. To hear more episodes of From the Corner Office podcast, go to businessobserverfl.com.